Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is wonderful to see all of you here. Welcome all, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we are here to commemorate Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah. Holocaust Remembrance Day was originally established by the Israeli government in 1953 as a day for the citizens of Israel to remember those murdered during the Holocaust. It is a solemn day, beginning at sunset on the 27th of the Hebrew month of Nisan and ending the following evening according to the traditional Jewish custom of marking a day. Over the past decades, Yom HaShoah has become a day commemorated by Jewish communities and individuals worldwide. In cities around the globe, many gather to read aloud the names of Jews and other victims of Nazi persecution killed in the Holocaust. Our Elon community has joined this tradition to emphasize the depth of loss by reading the names of Holocaust victims from the steps of the Mosley Center. You're all welcome and invited to participate in this act of remembrance by joining us on the steps of Mosley for the reading of names of those who perished in the Shoah following our ceremony. We'll start at 11. As we come together today here at Newman Lumen, we want to connect and share a few moments of reflection to commemorate the lives of those who died as a result of the racial purity measures in German-controlled Europe during the Second World War. And we'll remind the public of the terrible deeds that can be carried out when bigotry, hatred, and indifference are regarded as normal. Following the Yizkor, Elon students, faculty, and staff will be reading informational texts and personal accounts and recollections of Jewish victims of the Holocaust, and they will also introduce some of the non-Jewish individuals who aided those targeted by the Nazis and their collaborators before we light candles and then end our ceremony with a mourner's Kaddish. Let me take this as a moment to remind all of you to turn off your cell phones, and thank you for being here.
We begin with silence, the silence of death, the silence after destruction. There are times when songs falter, when darkness fills life, when martyrdom becomes a constellation of faith against the unrelieved black of space about us. There are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messenger to tell the full tale. There is only silence. The silence of Job, the silence of the 6 million, the silence of memory. Let us remember them as we link our silences. I am now going to chant the traditional prayer for the dead, particularly for the 6 million, and I invite you to please rise.
שמסרו את נפשם לקידוש השם
You may be seated.
The Holocaust, or the Shoah, is the term for the murder of about 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and their collaborators during the Second World War. Between 1941 and 1945, the Nazis sought to eliminate the entire Jewish community of Europe. Jews were murdered by death squads called Einsatzgruppen or transported to extermination camps. 6 million of the 11 million European Jews perished. The Holocaust mainly occurred in Eastern Europe, in places such as Poland and Ukraine. The term Holocaust could also refer to the orchestrated murder of Roma. Other groups were also targeted by the Nazi regime: disabled people, Soviet prisoners of war and civilians, Polish civilians, members of the LGBTQIA community, socialists, communists, trade unionists, Freemasons, and Jehovah's Witnesses. The Nazis did not act alone. Countries which were occupied by the Nazis during the Second World War, such as Lithuania and Ukraine, assisted the perpetrators. To gain an understanding of the Holocaust, it's also important not to look only at the acts of the perpetrators, but the experiences of rescuers, victims, survivors, and their children. And even though it is impossible to truly understand the victims' experiences, and even though nothing can prepare us to encounter the horror of this crime, it is still important to take stock of the scope of this genocide to understand how millions of people were deprived of humanity.
Every year, we choose to focus on one group connected to the Holocaust to create a more in-depth understanding of their particular experiences. This year, we chose to focus on the righteous amongst nations. The righteous among the nations honored by Yad Vashem are non-Jews who took great risks to save Jewish people during the Holocaust. Rescue took many forms, and the righteous came from different nations, religions, and walks of life. What they had in common was that they protected their Jewish neighbors at a time when hostility and indifference prevailed. Attitudes toward Jewish people during the Holocaust mostly ranged from indifference to hostility. The mainstream watched as their former neighbors were rounded up and killed. Some collaborated with the perpetrators. Many benefited from the expropriation of the Jewish people's property.
In a world of total moral collapse, there was a small minority who mustered extraordinary courage to uphold human values. These were the righteous amongst the nations. They stood in stark contrast to the mainstream of indifference and hostility that prevailed during the Holocaust. Contrary to the general trend, these rescuers regarded the Jewish people as fellow human beings who came within the bounds of the universe of obligation. Most rescuers started off as bystanders. In many cases, their behavior changed from bystanders to upstanders when they were confronted with the deportation or the killing of the Jewish people. Some had stood by in the early stages of persecution when the rights of Jewish people were restricted and the property confiscated. But there was a point when they decided to act. a boundary that they were not willing to cross. Unlike others, they did not fall into a pattern of ignorance and acquiescing to the escalating measures against the Jews. In many cases, it was the Jews who turned to the non-Jews for help. It was not only the rescuers who demonstrated resourcefulness and courage, but also the Jews who fought for their survival. Historian Wolfgang Benz, who did extensive research on rescue of Jews during the Holocaust, claims that when listening to rescue stories, the rescued persons may seem to be only objects for care and charity. However, the attempt to survive in illegality was before anything else a self-assertion and an act of Jewish resistance against the Nazi regime. Only a few were successful in this resistance.
With their Jewish neighbors knocking on their door, non-Jewish Germans and other nationals were faced with the need to make an instant decision. This was usually an instinctive human gesture, taken on the spur of the moment, and only then to be followed by a moral choice. Often it was a gradual process, with the rescuers becoming increasingly involved in helping those who were persecuted. Agreeing to hide someone during a raid or a roundup to provide shelter for a day or two until something else could be found would evolve into a rescue that lasted months or even years. The price that rescuers had to pay for their action differed from one country to another. In Eastern Europe, the Germans executed not only the people who sheltered Jews, but their entire families as well. Notices warning the population against helping the Jews were posted everywhere. Generally speaking, punishment was less severe in Western Europe, although there too were consequences that could be formidable, and some of the righteous among the nations were incarcerated in camps and also killed. Moreover, seeing the brutal treatment of the Jews and the determination on the part of the perpetrators to hunt down every single Jew, people must have feared that they would suffer greatly if they attempted to help the persecuted. In consequence, rescuers and the rescued lived under constant fear of being caught. There was always the danger of denunciation by friends, neighbors, or collaborators. This increased the risk and made it more difficult for ordinary people to defy the conventions and rules. Those who decided to shelter Jews had to sacrifice their normal lives and to embark upon a clandestine existence, often against the accepted norms of the society in which they lived, in fear of their neighbors and friends, and to accept a life ruled by dread of denunciation and capture.
Most rescuers were ordinary people. Some acted out of political, ideological, or religious convictions. Others were not idealists, but merely human beings who cared about the people around them. In many cases, they never planned to become rescuers, were totally unprepared for the moment in which they had to make such a far-reaching decision. They were ordinary human beings, and it is precisely their humanity that touches us and should serve as a model. Among the righteous are Christians from all denominations and churches, Muslims and agnostics, men and women of all ages. They come from all walks of life, highly educated people as well as illiterate peasants, public figures as well as people from society's margins, city dwellers and farmers from the remotest corners of Europe, university professors, teachers, physicians, clergy, nuns, diplomats, simple workers, servants, resistance fighters, policemen, peasants, fishermen, a zoo director, a circus owner, and many more. Bystanders were the rule, rescuers were the exception. However difficult and frightening, the fact that some found the courage to become rescuers demonstrates some freedom of choice existed, and that saving Jews was not beyond the capacity of ordinary people thought occupied Europe. The righteous among nations teach us that every person can make a difference.
This year's International Holocaust Remembrance Day speaker at Elon University was Renee Fink, a hidden child. She was born in the Netherlands in 1937, the only child of her German parents who left Germany in 1933 when Hitler gained power. After the Nazis conquered the Netherlands in 1940, life for Jewish residents became increasingly dangerous. Many went into hiding, like the family of Anne Frank. In 1942, Renee's parents went into hiding. They arranged through the underground to place their daughter with a family of righteous Christians, the Van den Brink family. This family was Catholic, and they had a very strong idea of humility and doing the right thing. And for them, it wasn't very complicated. That is the only way that the two people Renee came to call Mama and Papa looked at the world. Renee became Rita Van den Brink, hidden in plain sight until the end of the war. She never saw her parents again.
We would like to share a few stories of people who rescued Jews and were later recognized as righteous among nations by Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center in Israel. In 1940, the Japanese consul in Lithuania, Shinue Sugihara, defied his government's orders that directed him not to issue the thousands of visas for Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi persecution. Trapped between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, these refugees desperately sought escape. Sugihara, witnessing their plight, issued visas against direct instructions, enabling several thousands to travel through the Soviet Union and avoid the Holocaust. His actions, although resulting in his dismissal from the Foreign Service, saved thousands of lives and earned him recognition as righteous among the nations. I may have to disobey the government, he told his wife, but if I don't, I would be disobeying God.
Oskar Schindler, a German businessman and Nazi Party member, arrived in occupied Krakow, Poland in 1939 and profited from a Jewish-owned enamelware factory. Initially motivated by profit, Schindler's growing horror at Nazi brutality transformed him. He used his influence and wealth to protect his Jewish workers, eventually saving over 1,200 lives by moving them to his factory in Brunlitz. He bribed officials, falsified records, and risked his life to ensure their survival, even rescuing women from Auschwitz. After the war, he was penniless but revered by those he saved, and he was posthumously honored as righteous among the nations.
During World War II, Albania, a Muslim-majority country, became a haven for Jewish refugees, defying Nazi persecution. Guided by the traditional Albanian code of honor, Besa, meaning to keep the promise, Albanian families like the Veselis risked their lives to shelter and protect Jews. The Mandil family, fleeing Yugoslavia, found refuge with the Veselis, who hid them in their mountain village. Rafik Veseli, a young apprentice, played a crucial role in bringing the Mandelis to safety and later brought another Jewish family to his parents' home. Despite the dangers of German occupation and wartime activity, the Veselis and other Albanian families provided food, shelter, and protection, demonstrating extraordinary courage and humanity. After the war, the rescued families honored their saviors, leading to Yad Vashem recognizing the Veselis as righteous among the nations, highlighting Albania's unique and remarkable role in saving Jewish lives during the Holocaust. Gabriel Mandil wrote, "The Albanians are simple people, but very kind-hearted, warm, and humane. They may not have been educated on the heritage of Goethe and Schiller, but they attach the greatest importance of human life in most natural and unquestioning way. In those dark days when Jewish life in Europe didn't count much, Albanians protected the Jews with love, dedication, and sacrifice." And it is my pleasure to welcome up Twisted Measure.
Close your eyes, lay your head down.
We now invite you to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust as we light candles to remember those who perished, those who supported the victims of Nazi persecution, or liberated the survivors. We light our candles by passing the light of memory and hope from one to another. Let us honor those whose lights were put out, whose dreams, hopes, and lives were snuffed out before they even lived, for the 1.5 million children.
We light a candle for the untold millions for whom there is no one to mourn, whose entire families were annihilated, and who lie in unmarked graves.
We light a candle for those who stood upright while others were bending to unmoral will, for the righteous among the nations who risked and even gave their lives to help their fellow human beings.
We light a candle for those brave soldiers who liberated the camps, who carried the dead and near dead in their arms to a kinder and more humane future, and for those who survived with the Allied forces to put an end to tyranny and oppression.
We light a candle for the nearly 6 million Jews and for the 5 million non-Jews who perished in a planned system of human destruction, the scale of which had never before even been imagined.
We light a candle for those who live, even now, under the yoke of oppression, in places where the threat of genocide is real and ever present.
You may sit or stand according to your custom for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'ama divra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'hayachon u'v'yamachon u'v'chayed kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'emiru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. You may be seated.
We must remember so that it will not happen again. Thank you all for being here today and joining us. Dr. Sin will now share some details about the name reading at the steps of Mosley.
Yes, I want to join Boaz in thanking all of you for being here, especially those of you who help us shape the ceremony and participated. Twisted Measure, you have been a part of this now for a number of years, and we really appreciate these partnerships and everyone who's here to commemorate with us. So we invite you to remain here. We have some refreshments outside for some reflection and conversation, but then we'll transition over to the steps of Mosley, where at 11 o'clock we're starting with the reading of names of those who were murdered during the Holocaust. And this is a communal event. Many of you signed up, so for those of you participating in that tradition as we move through the day, thank you for that as well. But we also encourage you to come and witness the reading of the names, because this is an important element of this tradition, that those who don't have family members left to remember them are not forgotten. So we read out their names, and being part of that in any of those forms is going to be really meaningful and important. So please join us. The reading of the names is from 11 till 2 p.m. this afternoon. Different members of the community are going to be there to read. If you have questions, Jewish studies and Jewish life are available and happy to have conversations with you. So thank you again, and please stay for some reflection with us.